Election Day is tomorrow, so this week we're taking another look through the lens of history at some of the balloting of prior years. Dave McKinley resurrects some of the Pauls of the past whom you might remember in this week's News to You Election Week special.
10 years ago, the election of 2012 saw voters re-elect Barack Obama to serve a second term as president over Mitt Romney. Closer to home, former Erie County Executive Chris Collins won a hotly contested race for Congress, defeating the incumbent Kathy Hochul. Collins went on to serve 3 terms before having to resign when he admitted to charges connected to insider trading, for which he went to prison. Hochul, of course, now serves as the governor of New York. By the way, this was the same year that voters in Colorado and Washington passed referendums allowing those states to become the first to legalize recreational marijuana in the election of 2012. 20 years ago, oh, hey, Rich. Election 2002 saw George Pataki win a 3rd term as governor, defeating state comptroller McCall and Independence Party candidate Rochester businessman Tom Golisano, later to become better known to Western New Yorkers as the owner of the Buffalo Sabres. Pataki, by the way, remains the last Republican to hold the state's highest office, or any statewide office in New York for that matter. It was also the year Richard Gere was on the campaign trail stumping for the late Congresswoman Louise Slaughter. She won handily over her opponent, Henry Wojtasek, but of more interest here, perhaps the person with his back to the camera, who when he turns around you might recognize as a 21-year-old Nick Langworthy, who now serves as the state Republican chair and seeks to win a seat in Congress himself. Some might say spending this long in politics would be enough to give you gray hair, although in Nick's case that turned out to be a bit different. 30 years ago, for the election of 1992, an all-star lineup of Channel 2 stalwarts were there to inform you that voters chose William Jefferson Clinton to be the 42nd president of the United States. He defeated incumbent George Bush, and this man in what was a 3-way race. Now, here's the deal. This week's News to You pop quiz. Do you remember the name of this candidate?
I don't have to prove anything to you people.
Who ended up garnering close to 20% of the popular vote in the election of 30 years ago, back when Al D'Amato won what would be the last of his 3 terms in the U.S. Senate by defeating State Attorney General Bob Abrams. And Jack Quinn defeated Erie County Executive Dennis Gorski in a race for Congress. Just a few of the pals of the past who once held prominence in the days when it was all News to You.
There we go. So here's the answer to this week's News to You pop quiz. We asked if you remembered who this guy is, independent presidential candidate from 30 years ago, who ended up getting almost 20% of the popular vote in the 1992 presidential election. That, of course, is Ross Perot, who ran again in 1996, didn't get as many votes that year. By the way, he lived to be the age of 89 until he died in 2019.